At my birthday lunch, my daughter whispered, while I distract him, but she forgot who built it. The whisper wasn't meant for me. That much was clear from the way my daughter leaned closer to her husband, lowering her voice just enough to feel safe, just enough to assume I couldn't hear. But after 63 years of life, 3 decades in business, and a lifetime of watching people say one thing while meaning another, I had learned something important. People always underestimate the quiet ones. While I distract him, she murmured, her lips barely moving, you talk to the lawyer. I didn't flinch. I didn't look up from my plate. I didn't even pause mid-bite. But inside, something settled into place with the cold certainty of a final puzzle piece. So this was my birthday lunch. The table I built. The restaurant was expensive, not flashy but refined. Soft lighting, polished wood, the kind of place where waiters wore pressed jackets and never wrote anything down. My daughter had insisted on it. Dad, it's your birthday, she'd said earlier that week, her voice warm, rehearsed. Let us do something special for once. I smiled then. I always smiled. Fathers like me were raised to believe smiles were proof of gratitude. We sat at a long table by the window. My wife had passed away 6 years earlier, so it was just the 3 of us, me, my daughter Aisha, and her husband Cameron. Cameron was polite in the way ambitious men often are, respectful on the surface, calculating beneath. He asked about my health, commented on the weather, praised the restaurant. But he never asked about me. Not really. The waiter poured water. Menus opened and closed, appetizers arrived. And then came the whisper. While I distract him, I watch the condensation slide down my glass. Distract him. As if I were a child who could be entertained with small talk, while adults handled important matters. As if I hadn't built the very world they now believed they were entitled to navigate without me. The company they thought was theirs. I started my business when I was 27. No inheritance, no connections, no safety net. Just long nights, borrowed money, and a stubborn refusal to fail. I remembered the first office, a single rented room above a mechanic's shop. The smell of oil, the noise, the heat. I used to joke that if I survived that place, I could survive anything. For years, I did everything myself. Sales, accounting, deliveries. I missed birthdays, anniversaries, school events. When Aisha was little, she used to sit on the floor of my office coloring while I worked late. She'd hand me her drawings, stick figures holding hands under a crooked sun. This is us, Abu, she'd say. And I believed her. By the time the company grew, really grew, she was already in university. Smart, confident, ambitious. I was proud of her in a way words could never fully capture. I brought her into the company after graduation. Learn everything, I told her, from the ground up. She learned fast. Too fast, perhaps. Love makes you blind. Parents don't like admitting this, but love has a way of dulling instincts. I saw the signs. The impatience when I questioned decisions. The way meetings happened without me. The subtle shift from, what do you think, Dad, to this is how things are done now. Cameron entered the picture around the same time. He was charming, well-dressed, spoke confidently about scaling, modernization, and global expansion. He praised me often publicly. You're a legend, sir, he'd say at dinners. We're standing on your shoulders. But legends, I had learned, were often admired only until they became inconvenient. When I turned 62, they suggested I step back. Just enjoy life, Aisha said, squeezing my hand. You deserve it. I agreed. That was my first mistake. The lawyer at the next table. Back at the restaurant, I noticed something else. 2 tables away sat a man in a gray suit. No food, just coffee, a leather folder resting beside him. He glanced up briefly, just long enough to confirm what I already knew. A lawyer. Not my lawyer. Cameron shifted in his seat. Aisha laughed loudly at something he said, her voice unusually animated. She was distracting me. I almost admired the coordination. Cameron stood. "Excuse me for a moment," he said smoothly. "I need to take this call." Aisha reached for my hand. "Dad, tell me again about how you started the company," she said, smiling too brightly. I looked at her, really looked at her. The little girl with crayons on my office floor. The young woman I trusted with my life's work. The daughter who thought a birthday lunch was the perfect cover for betrayal. And suddenly, the sadness faded, replaced by clarity. What they never knew. There's something people forget about founders. We don't just build companies. We build fail-safes. Years ago, long before Cameron, long before the talk of retirement, I had quietly restructured ownership. Not because I distrusted my daughter, but because I trusted reality. Control was divided carefully. Voting rights, decision authority, asset ownership. On paper it looked generous. In practice it was precise. And there was one clause, a small one, that transferred everything back to me if any attempt was made to alter ownership without my explicit consent. Including through legal maneuvers. Including through temporary distractions. The lawyer returned to Cameron's table. Papers were slid across, pens uncapped. Cameron nodded, confident. Too confident. The moment they realized. I stood. The sound of my chair scraping against the floor cut through the restaurant. Aisha looked up, startled. Cameron froze mid-signature. "I think it's time we stop pretending," I said calmly. The lawyer looked confused. "Sir." I smiled, not kindly, not cruelly. Just honestly. "You see," I continued, "this company isn't just my livelihood, it's my life. And I didn't survive 40 years in business by being careless." Aisha's face drained of color. "Dad, what are you talking about?" I turned to Cameron. "Did you read the appendix?" I asked. He swallowed, "Of course." "The entire appendix." Silence. I pulled a folded document from my jacket, a copy of the very clause he'd overlooked. The lawyer read it once. Then again. Then slowly closed the folder. "I'm afraid," he said carefully, "this changes everything." The birthday gift. The restaurant was silent around us, the kind of silence that makes people pretend not to listen while hanging onto every word. Aisha stood now, tears welling. "Dad, we were just trying to help." "No," I said gently, "you were trying to take." "There's a difference." I paid the bill myself. At the door, I turned back once. "Happy birthday to me," I said quietly. The gift, it seems, was clarity. I walked out alone. Not angry. Not broken. Just finally awake. Aftermath. The company remains under my control. Aisha and Cameron left soon after, not fired, not punished. Just no longer trusted. Some lessons don't require revenge. They require remembrance. And every year since, on my birthday, I sit quietly grateful not for loyalty, but for wisdom earned the hard way. Because they forgot something important that day. They forgot who built it. And builders never truly lose the blueprint. The moral. Time has a way of revealing what power hides. I learned that day that success doesn't just attract admiration, it attracts entitlement. People begin to believe that what you built with sacrifice somehow belongs to them simply because they arrived later, closer, or louder. But foundations remember their maker. The true mistake was my daughter's whisper or her husband's confidence. It was their belief that age meant weakness, that kindness meant blindness, and that experience could be distracted like a child with a story. It can't, because wisdom doesn't announce itself. It waits. It watches, and when the moment comes, it speaks calmly and decisively. If there is a lesson in this, it is this: never confuse patience with ignorance. Never mistake generosity for surrender. And never forget who built the ground you are standing on. Love may make us give more chances than we should, but foresight ensures we never give away our dignity. That was the real birthday gift. Not revenge, not control, but the quiet certainty that what I built in business, in values, in resolve still stood firm. And it always would.